Millie Florence here. This is the Q&A portion of a talk I gave at the Young Writers Workshop Retreat 2025. My talk that I gave was on characters, so therefore most of the questions were about characters and character arcs. So if you're looking to level up your characters in your fiction novel, this is the place to be. Enjoy!
Do you have advice for working towards writing those more complex, morally gray characters? It's boring advice. The boring advice is practice. However, you can practice very strategically. So like I said, start out by writing foil characters. And when I say practice, by the way, it's totally valid to practice by writing a short story. Write it so if you want step 1, step 2, step 3, write a short story about with foil characters in it. Step 2, write a short story with foil characters in it and one other character whose belief is a little more complex and see how they interact. Step 3, you see what I'm saying though, it gets more and more complex with each step. But I do highly recommend writing shorter projects to practice specific aspects of your writing, because that is what I did. I actually did this with a lot of different story elements, not even just characters, and I talk about this a lot, but in case you haven't heard me say this on the instructors page, my first book, Honey Butter, I intentionally made to be very, very simple and very, very short. It was one character's point of view. It took place on a normal street contemporary story, and it's only 30,000 words long. And then the next book was fantasy. And then the next book was historical fantasy. And I intentionally introduced a different concept in each book to help me level up my writing slowly over time. So the key is to start at level 1 and then add a new complex thing in every new project you do to learn how to write that thing. Okay, who else has questions? Yes. It would be really hard to tell what he would do in certain situations. You're saying if you're writing a more old-fashioned writing style, why would that make it harder to tell what he would do in certain situations? Because his character isn't simple, his character is really complicated. Well, if it's so complicated right now, this is going to be slightly harsh advice. If it's so complicated that you can't figure out what he would do in certain situations, you need to make him a little simpler. Either because he's just too complicated in general, or your writing you are not at the level yet to write that complex of a character, would be my answer. Yes. Yeah. If you have a character who's too overly complicated, how do you pick what to take away to simplify it? I would bring it back to that core internal conflict. So, yeah, start by asking yourself, what is my character's backstory and belief, like we talked about? Start there. Take away everything that is not connected to that and see if the character still works. And if it doesn't work, see what are the essential things you can add back that do work. But start with that core of backstories and belief is what I would say. And then also, it's really unique for every character, so get feedback as well, because I don't feel like my advice here on stage is going to 100% fix your problem. But that would be my general advice for all characters. Yes? Ooh, great question. Do you have any tips for balancing multiple point of views? I love this question because I recently had to learn how to do this. In my most recent book that I published, The Mage Pocket Apprentice Alliance, that was my first time ever writing dual point of views. And I wanted them to both feel equally like the main character. So because it was my first time, and because I really wanted to do it well, I chose to make them foil characters. You don't have to do that. That's what I did because I knew I wasn't at the level to write dual POV characters who weren't foils yet. But general advice for balancing dual POV characters is when you are working with story structure, you want to make sure that the same events trigger both of their character beats. So let's take 3-act story structure, for example. You want to make sure the midpoint of your 3-act story structure, whatever that thing that happens is in the midpoint, triggers both of your POV characters' midpoints at the same time. or really, really close to each other. That was a huge thing for me, is I had to, and it's hard. It's really hard. I had to sit for some hours with my story structure and my character sheets and everything, kind of think through, okay, what's the thing that happens at each of these beats that will trigger both of them? What is the inciting incident? What can the inciting incident be for both of them that will push both of them outside of their comfort zone at the same time, right? That has really been the key for me. That, and then the one other thing is to time your POV switches very strategically, because you don't want the reader to groan when they see that one POV. You always want to show the story from the POV of the character who is either doing the most interesting thing or has the most interesting perspective on the thing that is happening. Which means, again, you don't change the characters, you change the environment around them. You need to structure what happens in your plot when strategically, so that when you switch to the next character, they are doing the interesting thing. That's my tips. However, I still feel like I'm an amateur at dual POV right now. Hopefully that's helpful. But full disclaimer, I'm still learning how to do that. Yes. Mm. Like introverted and like she doesn't talk much. Ooh. Okay, so the question was, how do you show that a character is changing if they are more closed off and don't show their emotions? You get the readers in on the joke is the key. You want to, okay, so if your character is very defensive and doesn't like to show emotions, then your goal is to make the reader know that they are defensive and they don't like to show emotions. And then you need to give the character things that they do that are like a secret language to the reader. That means this character is feeling emotions right now, but they don't want to show them. And that could be something as simple as like they fidget, they curl their hands into fists, like give them body language, something in their mind, certain words they use. Give them some ticks and tells that show the reader they're feeling a lot right now, or they're feeling a specific emotion, even if they are not showing that specific emotion. They are showing it, technically, in a way just most people wouldn't notice. It's just much more toned down. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Yeah. Love that. I want to write middle grade, but I take my writing too seriously. How can I loosen up and be fun? Brainstorm with your dad. He'll make your writing seem like a joke real fast. No, I'm serious. I brainstorm with my dad a lot, and he thinks he's very funny. He is often funny. But I'll just be like, oh, I'm struggling with this scene. What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Serious stuff. He's like, this character should play the tuba. No, find a good brainstorming partner. That often helps a lot with someone who can be a little bit more lighthearted and help you realize it doesn't all have to be angsty and dark all of the time. But also, it's important to know that, oh, you have a brainstorming partner? That's awesome. But also, it's important to know that when you say take yourself too seriously, you need serious stuff in middle grade too, right? It just needs to be balanced. You need both, right? So don't stop taking yourself seriously in terms of like themes and the issues you're going to tackle, but in terms of like the external stuff, yes, you should be more lighthearted. There should be tiny dragons who eat marbles or whatever. So that's one thing. Also, talk to kids is super helpful because kids have incredible ideas. This is why I highly recommend like kid beta readers when you're writing middle grade. And also ask them, don't only ask them like what works and what doesn't, but like what are your ideas for the story? Because they will come up with really good ideas for the story. I've gotten several good ideas for my books from my younger siblings and from kids I have like babysat or done childcare for as well. So that would be my advice. All right, any more? Yes. Do you have to have the character's misbelief connected to the theme of the story? Yes. Yes. If they are the main character, yes. If they are side characters, their misbelief doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the theme. Like in The Bolter of Ashton Harper, Zizi's misbelief is not really connected to the theme. Her misbelief is that she can never accept help. So she goes on an arc of learning to accept help. That has nothing to do with the theme. But she does have a strong opinion about the theme, right? Ashton's misbelief is connected to the theme. The theme is your character's misbelief that they explore throughout the story, right? Side characters might have their own separate arcs, but usually they should have some opinion about the theme that comes up when they talk to the main character. Does that answer the question? Okay, cool. Okay, I'm being recommended. What if your character has memory loss so she doesn't remember her backstory and she's also morally gray? Fun fact, Theo, the other point of view character from the Mage Pocket Apprentice Alliance, also has memory loss. His memory loss is his backstory. If you have as a character who has memory loss, that is their backstory. The fact that you lost a huge portion of your memory is going to inform who you are as a person. And depending on personality, people will react in different ways. So Theo, he doesn't really want his memories back in book 1 because he feels like he doesn't deserve to have them back. He's also kind of morally gray. Well, he's not internally, it's complicated. He's not like, he has a good moral code, but he's done some bad things because of circumstances, and now he feels really bad about it. And so he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to know who my family is because they'll just be ashamed of me. It's super angsty. The point is, his memory loss informed part of his belief and his backstory and who he is as a person. So if your character has memory loss, then ask how losing that much memory would affect this character, the same way you would ask how would these backstory events affect this character. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. I think we have time for one more. Yeah. How do you choose or develop a theme that works with characters and their backstories? So that depends on your goals for the book. If you don't know, if you don't like have an opinion of like what the theme should be, then I would say look at your character's backstory, look at their personality, and really just ask yourself what would naturally arise from that. What are the questions that would naturally arise from that? Often the simplest or most obvious answer is the right one. Sherlock Holmes. Or whatever, I don't know, he probably said something similar about that, right? Whatever is the easiest conclusion to come to is usually the right one, unless there is some reason it shouldn't be. So don't overcomplicate it. If you don't know what your theme should be, look at your character's backstory, ask how would a person with this personality react to that backstory, right? And then ask yourself what kinds of thematic questions would arise from that. And you'll probably come up with 3, 5, 10 different options. And review it with a peer group, brainstorm which one of these are the most interesting for you to explore, which one of these is connected most closely with your character. Yeah. The power of friendship. So she asked, how do you balance having a large cast of main characters? Genuinely, that is why, though, there are so many stories where the theme is the power of friendship, because that's how you tie all them together. It's like, these are all different people with completely different arcs, and they learn to work together. That's the theme, because they're all so different that we couldn't find a different way to connect them. That is the Band-Aid solution. And I say Band-Aid like it's a bad thing. That actually works very well. If you want to make the theme be different people learning to work together, that is completely valid. Genuinely. There's a reason it's tried and true. There's a reason it works. If you really can't think of any other way that all of their backstories and internal conflicts would connect, use the power of friendship. That is perfectly valid. If you don't want to do that, then you would want to figure out what does connect their arcs. Is there something that connects their arcs? Are they all looking for a home? Are they all fighting in a war? What brought them together as a group to begin with? Is there a theme there? Found family, then that's your theme. There's searching for belonging, your theme is belonging. There you go. Problem solved. Brilliant. Okay, we'll do one more question. Who has a good one? Okay, you're waving. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you're saying is basically your character in book one, a huge part of his misbelief is like solved or realized by the end of book one, and then how do you? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's multiple ways you can do that. It depends on the type of series you want to write, because writers will do this in very different ways, and any of them are valid. It just depends on your goals for the story. Way number one is he could have a completely different arc in each book, if that's the type of trilogy you want to write. That's totally fine. If your character has completely different arcs in every single book, that's a valid way to write a series. That's what a lot of writers do. What other writers do, this is what I'm doing with Mage Pocket, is to make all the arcs connected to each other. So they have like mini per book arc, but then they also have a series arc, which is kind of separate, but also connected to the individual book arcs. So I'm probably going to get this wrong. I'm just using it as an example. For you, you said in book one, he lost his daughter and then he gets her back by the end. So I assume a huge part of his goal, huge part of his internal conflict is like about being a father, right? So he becomes a father at the end of book one. Maybe in book two, if you want to make it connected to book one, it's how does he be a good dad after everything that just happened in book one? Maybe his daughter is rebellious, because there's more to being a father than just having a kid. He got the kid, now he has to learn how to parent the kid. That's an example of like what you could do where the arcs build off of each other. So you kind of ask yourself, is the overall arc of my series, is his overall arc fatherhood? Then explore a different thing about fatherhood in each book. Or he could have completely different arcs in each book. That's also totally fine. Those are the two main ways you tend to see people do it. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today, but thank you guys so much.